My Story is presented to you by the Focus on Life program of the GBHWC Peace Office and Good Neighbor Pharmacy. Special thanks to Guam Cancer Care, the Pacific Star Resort and Spa, Jai Fusion Agate, DFS Tea Galleria, The Cello Shop, Tresemme, distributed by Cosmos, Magic Mirror, Canvas by Fawn, Procreate, and Loco Promos.
The Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control recently published a Guam Cancer Facts and Figures survey. The survey is a collaborative effort between numerous agencies on island to include the Department of Public Health, the University of Guam, the Guam Cancer Registry, and more. The January 2015 survey shows that cancer continues to be a major health burden to the people of Guam. In fact, cancer on Guam ranks second in the cause of deaths. In 2011, 1 in every 5 of all deaths on Guam were cancer-related. The statistics are terrifying, especially for our small island community. Half a day, I'm Louise Muña, and welcome to the 3rd episode of My Story. In the next half hour, I will speak with 2 survivors whom I hold dear to me in my life. Most especially, one of tonight's cancer survivors was as close to home as it gets for me and my family. Later in the show, Dr. Annette David from Health Partners will share more of Guam cancer facts and figures. Some of the findings that she will share will surprise you. So sit tight and prepare for a very touching and informative episode of My Story. Welcome back to episode 3 of My Story. For the first time on this show, we will talk with a male survivor about his battles with cancer. Let me introduce you to Frankie Perez. Hi, Frankie.
Hi, Louise.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, first of all.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
You were diagnosed with
Colon cancer.
Colon cancer.
Yeah.
Is that common cancer in male and female, or just males? Or?
Yeah, you know, I guess the common thought is it's mostly a male, but you know, women can get colon cancer too. And I think what was uncommon with my situation was how young I was when I got diagnosed.
I was going to say colon cancer is like I want to say an older person's disease, right?
Yeah. Like they don't usually recommend colonoscopies till like 45 or.
Is that the only way they can determine colon cancer is through colonoscopy?
That's the way they can prevent colon cancer.
Oh, okay.
Through colonoscopies.
What was life like before you were diagnosed with cancer? I just want to rewind back to those days. I mean, what was Frankie Perez's life like? I mean, we all know that you're a musician at one point, or still are.
Yeah, I played the drums in a band. Obviously, I was a DJ on a radio station, and so you know, those two things, two things combined, you know, required a little bit of social life. A lot of nightlife.
Okay, go ahead. Just say a lot of social life.
A lot of social life. A lot of nightlife. You know, a lot of vices. And so I'm a former smoker. You know, in my 20s, obviously, when you're in college, when you're going through your 20s, you know, you feel like Superman.
Right. Invincible.
Yeah,
like you could do anything.
You're at the prime of your health, so nothing can go wrong at this point in time. So, yeah, I did a little, you know, indulging, if you will. Yeah.
No one's going to get in. You're not going to get in trouble for saying anything. But okay, so I wanted to go back to those days only because, you know I'm almost positive that your life has changed now.
Sure.
But let's go to what led you to even go to get checked. I mean, what were some of the symptoms that you were getting that caused you to be concerned?
Okay. Well. The main one was I was having major abdominal pains.
Kind of
like around my belt.
To what would you compare it to?
I would compare it to like a gas pain.
Like the Me Too, okay.
But 10 times, 20 times worse.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, I'm sweating bullets, like nonstop sweat. My pants are soaked, my shirt's soaked, you know, and it's just from the pain alone. And so
Have you ever felt anything like that before
nothing
then?
like it, yeah. And I remember going to the doctor for the, you know, after the pain subsided, and you know, he was like, maybe you ate something, and I go, no, doc, this is far beyond eating something wrong, or I go, this is a pain I've never had. And he asked me, you know, what was the pain like, 1 to 10? And I said, it's 10, easy. And that's the first time I ever said that.
Wow.
You know.
So was that the indicator?
That was the main
okay,
indicator.
I'm going to go to the
yeah.
doctor.
Well, you know, the common indicator, I did have blood in my stool, but it didn't happen frequent enough for me to like.
So blood in your stool didn't cause you to go, oh my God,
Well,
something's wrong.
you know,
I better go get it checked.
You know, you don't know it's blood in your stool. You're like kind of like, I wonder what that is.
That?
You know, and you're scratching your head, and like, so it didn't happen frequent. But towards when I had my first pain, then it was more frequent, and I did notice it more. So you know, and you'll know. You're like, that's blood.
That's blood.
Yeah.
So how many incidences, and then you went to the doctor. So what
I went to the
happened?
doctor, obviously blood work, let's check it off one by one, what it is, you know. And so I did that for 3 months, but every month to the day that I had the pains, I would have another episode of pains. So, you know, I would go back to the doctor. It happened again, you know. Okay, let's do these tests, you know, and then those tests come back.
Curious
and
how it was like every month
to the day. Yeah, it was
Wow.
it was weird like that.
It was almost like clockwork telling you
yeah.
you need to go do something.
Yeah, and so, you know, obviously when everything is checking out, you know, the final thing was, all right, let's get a colonoscopy, and to
Who would
quote
have
the
thought,
doctor,
right? Somebody in their 30s.
yeah,
had
to quote the doctor, there it is, you know.
Do you remember that?
I was sedated.
You were?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
No pain.
You
at
know,
all?
everybody jokes about colonoscopies, like, oh, you know, I don't want to go through that.
Right.
You know, I don't want anybody sticking something anywhere.
Right,
you know,
right.
It's painless. There's no, you know, you walk out the same person you were walking in. Well, in my case, not really, but you know, part of fighting cancer is, you know, finding it early, preventing it before it happens.
What size, I mean, when the
It
picture
was-
of it, what is,
You can't really tell, obviously, but according to the doctor, it was the size of a ping pong ball.
wow.
Yeah.
That's about
yeah,
that big.
About that big, yeah. So my oncologist said for a tumor that side, or a colon cancer tumor for that side, it was roughly about 10 years old.
Wow.
So
So you mean that cancer,
Yeah.
that tumor has been growing inside of you
Yeah.
approximately that long?
yeah, well, colon cancer is a slow growing cancer, which is why, you know, when you get a colonoscopy, it's like every 10 years, because if they don't see anything, you know, it's slow growing, so they'll be able to catch it 10 years later, you know. And it starts off as polyps in your
Okay.
colon, and those turn into cancer. So if there's polyps in your colon, they'll just remove it, and then
So
That's it.
after you were diagnosed, well, when you woke up, did the doctor
at that
call
time
you
I
back?
didn't know. That time, you know, he was like, I couldn't take it out, so I took a biopsy of it, and after those results come in, then we can go from there.
Gave you a
So,
call?
Yeah, gave me a call and said, hey, the biopsy came in. You know,
Come on in.
Come on in. Let's talk about it.
So he sat you down
Yeah,
in the room?
and you know what? I was already preparing myself for the cancer
Really?
diagnosis. Well, it was
You
a
had an
pain I
idea.
never felt, you know, and you know, I'm a realistic kind of guy.
Do you remember his exact words? What did he tell you?
Yeah, he said, I have some bad news. It's you have colon cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, and
What
then
was your reaction?
I was just a little silent and trying to
Was
soak
anybody
it
in the room
like-
with you
Yeah,
there?
my girlfriend was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Your
and,
girlfriend is, what's her name?
Marisha Otero. Yeah.
She's
And so,
she's been by your side since then?
oh yeah, yeah, and you know, what's funny is that she works for the American Cancer Society.
Whoa.
So yeah, so
Fate would have it, right? Puts you together with someone who works
you
for
know,
the
and we were
American
dating
Cancer
2 years before my diagnosis, so you know, I kind of describe it as God sent me an angel to prepare me for
Wow.
what was to happen. I recommend anybody who gets a cancer diagnosis to immediately call the American Cancer Society, and they have every reading material you can possibly think of, down to nutrition, financing, well, first of all, what the cancer is, and, you know, because
makes you understand it a little bit more.
when you understand it, you deal with it better. Yeah, you know how to handle things, you know, it's,
So you had to have surgery?
I did. I had a partial colectomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had to have chemotherapy?
Yeah, 6 months of chemo.
6 months?
Yeah.
Are you done?
I am. 3
You are?
months ago, yeah.
How brutal was that? Because people think, you know, when you have cancer, oh my gosh, chemotherapy is brutal. I mean,
You
is
know,
it rough?
I'm not going to say it's a walk in the park. It's not easy, for sure. You got to have strength.
So you
gotta-
completed your 6 months?
Yeah, I did. I did it all. I did everything here on Guam.
What would you give, what would your advice be to, you know, maybe not so much just your age group, but because you're in your age group, you know, what advice would you give to somebody in your age group?
First, get a colonoscopy.
Even in their 30s?
It doesn't hurt,
Doesn't
you
hurt?
know.
Okay.
I know a friend of mine who heard my situation and went,
I better go get that done.
I'm just going to go get checked, you know. And so he went, and they found a couple polyps in his colon.
Wow.
And so, you know, I told him, I go, hey,
might have saved your life.
That could have potentially turned into cancer, you
Wow.
know. So it's really, you know, when you do all the reading, it's prevention, really. That's why, you know, you have your mammograms. That's why you have your pap tests, and, you know, for women. And it's
So colonoscopy should just be
yeah.
there.
So it's just really, you know, so you catch it before it becomes cancer. That's what you want to do.
That's your advice.
Yeah. And, you know, everything in moderation. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Frankie, for sharing your story and your battle with colon cancer. When we return, we will talk with a woman who is very near and dear to me and has had her battles with cancer. Welcome back to my story. Let me introduce you to one of the strongest, bravest women I know. For me, cancer showed its ugly face, and this is as close to home as it can get. Let me introduce you to my mom, Gloria Borja. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
So, usually when I get people on here, I ask them what I should call them. Should I call you Mom or should I call you Gloria?
Mom is good.
Mom is good. Okay, so now everybody's going to know you as Mom.
Okay.
So you, I know this is kind of awkward because I know your story, but you were diagnosed with
Uterine cancer.
uterine cancer.
Yes.
Now, of course, that's only a female cancer, right?
Yes.
Because men don't have uterus, right? Okay, this is funny. So what was life like before cancer with me? No, I'm just kidding. What was life like before cancer?
It was always busy. I was always day to day doing baking for people, parties, cooking for parties and stuff. So it was always busy.
So what was it what were some of the symptoms that actually caused you to, you know, to be concerned about, you know, that make you go to the doctor?
Well, 6 years ago, I was having bleeding, and so I went to the doctor, and they did a
Bleeding like as in a
a
menstrual?
period,
Like a
yeah,
menstrual bleeding?
yeah. And
Okay.
I was already in menopause for 7 years, so the bleeding started, and it went on for a month. I went to the doctor, and they did a ultrasound, and then they did a I guess it is an ultrasound where they did a transvaginal ultrasound, and they found that the uterus was enlarged, but there was no sign of cancer. They did a biopsy back then, and then
6 years ago?
6 years ago,
Okay.
and then last year, it stopped. They gave me medication to stop the bleeding because they said there was nothing that was found in there, and then 5 years later, the bleeding started again. So I went back again, and then they asked for me to do another ultrasound, and They did a biopsy, and that's when they said that there was stage 1 endometrial cancer, which is cancer of the uterus.
Well, when they did the ultrasound,
Yes.
did they already give you that diagnosis?
No.
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 So
it had to go to the doctor, and then the doctor called me and
to
tell me.
tell you that
Yeah.
you had stage 1
stage 1
endometriosis cancer.
endometrial cancer.
He just said cancer.
He just said cancer.
So, I mean, nobody was in the room with you, right?
Nobody. I was by myself.
Wow. I mean, did you even think that it would be cancer?
I had a feeling that they might want to do surgery because of the enlarged uterus.
Okay.
That was.
But you didn't think
I
that they were
didn't
going to
think it
say
was
cancer.
no.
So when the doctor said you have, I mean, anything with cancer, right?
Yeah.
So when the doctor said that, like, what was your first reaction? Were you scared? Were you? I mean, what was going through your head?
As soon as he said the test came back positive for cancer, it felt like my heart stopped. Like, what am I going to do? My kids, how am I going to explain this to them? But he said that it was a good thing that it was caught early, and it's stage 1, so that the possibilities of getting it removed and not having cancer after that is very good.
So then, that was just last year.
Yeah.
So then the previous ultrasound, then that wasn't cancer at all
No.
then. So did they say anything why that bleeding was happening before, or, I mean, could
It was
just been-
because, they just said it was because the uterus was enlarged because my body wasn't ready to go into menopause.
Mm-hmm.
It was like they were saying that your body still thinks it's young, so it's still producing, you know, the thing that causes the periods.
So that was the
Yeah.
first diagnosis,
Yeah.
then the second one. So when you went back for the bleeding, I'm sure cancer wasn't even in your mind that that's what they
No.
were going to tell you. So I could imagine that that was like really scary. I remember you called everybody to have a
Family,
meeting.
yeah.
Already, when you spoke to the doctor after he gave you the diagnosis, did you already have a plan in mind, what you were going to do, or were you going to wait to talk to the family? Or?
Well, no, he said that right then that day, he said that I need to look into going to have the surgery, and he didn't recommend getting it done here.
Why is that?
I don't know. I don't think he trusted the hospital here. And the Philippines was out of the question because Medicare is not covered in the Philippines.
And that's a good point, though, because there are some people who only have Medicare,
Yeah.
like, such as you. So the Philippines
Was not
does
an
not
option.
accept
Yeah.
Medicare. So you had to travel
Yes.
away.
I had to
far
go to
away.
California.
So when you had the meeting, you called everybody.
Yes.
Right. You had, of course, all of the kids, and just, you know, I remember when you called the meeting, and so this is kind of like an interview between me and you. I remember sitting there or standing up, and you were like, "I have cancer," and I went, "Oh my gosh, my mom has cancer." And my first thought was, what are we going to do if she dies? I mean, seriously, that's, you know, people think
I
that
thought
way.
the same way.
People think that way. What am I going to do? You know, how is this family going to survive without mom, right? So I remember, wow, what are we going to do? And I remember you were very strong, and you kept your composure, which helped us keep our composure. And then I remember you saying, okay, so what are we going to do? I need to travel off island. And then that became our next mission, right? It was to figure out how we were going to get you off island.
Yeah.
So from there, let's take it from there. We managed to get you off island. Where did you go?
I contacted my brother who lived in California to look around for hospitals in the area where he's at, so that if I stayed with them, we wouldn't have to travel too far. So he was able to get me to St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange, California.
Okay, and
It was a cancer hospital.
a cancer
Yes.
hospital. Wow, what was the treatment like there?
Very nice.
Really?
From the beginning, from the minute you walked into the hospital, everybody was very helpful as far as, you know, making you feel welcome and not worry about, what you were going through.
So once you went there, and just to, to share a little bit of the story with everybody too, that I went with you, only because it was feasible for me more than it was for anybody else. So I took off with you, and they prepped you for surgery. And so I'm also sharing my mom's story with me too, that I remember when they prepped you and they put you in the bed and they got you ready for it. And they were wheeling you off. And the minute you took off, I just broke it. I was like, I hope nothing happens to her, because then I have to be the bearer of that news. So I prayed, I said, God, please, please take care of her and watch her and make sure those doctors take care of her, because she needs to come back out. So that's my story. I'm not supposed to cry.
3 hours later, I came out.
Yes, you came out. See, can I grab a cookie? I'm not supposed to cry. So, yes, I remember staying up for that whole 3 hours, and it's like, okay, Mom's good. Now I can call everybody and say, yes, Mom is good. That probably was the hardest thing, was watching them wheel you away and not knowing how you were going to come out. But I do remember the doctor coming out and saying, are you her daughter? And I said, yes. And he said, your mom did really well during the surgery, and
They took care of the cancer.
Everything is good. Everything is out. She had the best stage of stage 1. And I went, wow, there are stages of stages. And he said, yes, she had stage 1A, which means you caught it at a very early stage.
There was no treatments, no chemo.
Right, so you didn't need to go through any of that stuff. So now, I mean, what do you recommend to people? What is your advice to people? I mean, what would you?
Well, I'm looking at ladies who are menopausal, ladies who are my age right now. And not long after I had my surgery, a friend was diagnosed with the same thing. So I had to kind of be like a mentor, sort of, to help her get through this, because she, right then and there, she was told it was stage 1, and already she said she's going to die.
So you've become now an advocate
Yes.
of people who have cancer. Are they calling you up and saying,
Yes.
Gloria, what do I do? How do I feel?
Yes.
What am I supposed to do? So that's now your mission
Yes.
in life, is to help people with cancer. And that's the reason why we're having this show. By the way, you're the inspiration for the show, because I remember those feelings, and now, I'm not that scared anymore. So thank you, Mom, for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And allowing me to share it with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mom, for sharing yours and our emotional family story with the viewers. When we return, we will talk with Guam Cancer Registry and find out what the recent statistics are about cancer on Guam.
Hello and half a day. I am Dr. Annette David, and I would like to share with you 5 quick facts about cancer here in Guam. Be prepared, as the facts I am about to reveal will surprise you. First, cancer remains a major public health burden for Guam's community. On average, every day, 1 person is diagnosed with cancer in Guam, and every 2.5 days, someone dies of cancer. Secondly, unlike the rest of the United States, where cancer incidence and mortality are declining, in Guam, new cancer cases and deaths from cancer continue to rise. In fact, today, cancer is the 2nd most frequent cause of death in Guam. Thirdly, half of cancer deaths are caused by 3 cancers: lung cancer, liver cancer, and colorectal cancer. Fourth are the 4 major risk factors in our island, which include tobacco use, as well as exposure to secondhand tobacco smoke, alcohol abuse, viral infection with hepatitis B and the human papillomavirus or HPV, and obesity. And finally, there are 5 things we can do to prevent and reduce our cancer risk. The first is to be 100% tobacco-free, and that includes avoiding exposure to secondhand smoke. Second, use alcohol in moderation. Third, reduce the chance of getting hepatitis B and HPV through safe sex and vaccination. Fourth, maintain a healthy weight. And finally, get the appropriate screening so that if you do have cancer, it can be caught early and treated appropriately. Today, cancer is not necessarily a death sentence. We can do a lot to prevent and reduce our cancer risk. So please, take the necessary steps to live a healthy life. Thank you to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, the University of Guam Cancer Research Center, and the Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition for putting together the cancer facts and figures.
Thank you, Dr. David, for a very realistic look at how cancer does affect our island community. To learn more or read upon the survey at length, please visit the Guam Department of Public Health's website at dphss.guam.gov. Thank you so much for tuning in every month to a new episode of My Story. Please join me again for another look at the battles and stories of 2 cancer warriors. Until then, I'm Louise Muña. Adios.